your last name.
Vojnich.
Vojnich. Oh, I would have fucked that up.
How did you not know that?
I thought it was Vojnich, and it was Vojnich.
That's wild.
What is that even?
Czechoslovakian.
What?
Are we starting already?
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Oh, motherfucker. Over here on my phone.
Yeah. So where's that from?
Czechoslovakia.
Yeah. Do you know a whole lot about your background?
Absolutely nothing.
You ever thought about looking into it?
No, I know. So my grandmother on my father's side is all Italian, and
God, that explains so much.
right. And then I don't look a bit Italian though.
No, but that attitude.
And then so on my grandfather, who he died when I was young, but I guess that's where the Czech comes from.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Very cool.
Anything other than that.
Very cool. Introduce yourself a little bit. Just tell your name and a little bit about what you do real quick.
All right. What's up? My name is Myles Vojnich. I wear a lot of hats. So I am a master barber here in East Tennessee. I am a Marine Corps veteran, and lately the most important that I've came with is recovering drug addict.
Shoot, yeah. We're trying to get more and more of that on this show. We would definitely want to talk about addiction quite a bit because it's something that's really important to me, something that I've struggled with a bunch in my life, and, you know, it's still an everyday struggle in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, we definitely want to talk about that. How long do you have clean?
So total sobriety time, this round was a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
I started my recovery journey early 2020.
Yeah.
I was sober for close to 18 months that first time.
Yeah.
And I relapsed. I started drinking that time first, and it led back to my drug of choice, which is methamphetamine.
Yeah, we're total opposite on that, bro, because I hated speed. I was talking about that when I was interviewing somebody yesterday, and like I couldn't stand speed, man. I was the most annoying dude ever on some cocaine, man. I had to be the most annoying.
Meth. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying yesterday too. Like the only time I ever did meth, it was kind of inadvertently. One time, it was on accident. You know, I thought it was Molly. It was not.
It's usually how it goes for everybody's first time. You ever talk to anybody that does Molly or cocaine? They're like, man, I've never done meth. And then not 4 sentences later, well, there was this one time I accidentally got a bag of something, man. And it definitely, I tell you, I definitely felt a little weird. I was like, that was meth.
Yeah, you got to be careful out there. You never know what you'll be getting anymore.
No.
So anyway, so a lot of, obviously, addiction, we like to talk about. We like to talk about mental health and stuff. You can talk about pretty much anything you want. We can talk about barbering. We can talk about pretty much anything. But like I said, I like to focus on the mental health aspect and the addiction part.
For sure.
Tell me a little bit about maybe just growing up, man. Like, where are you from around? Where were you from?
So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. For the most part, single mother raised me. Her name is Denise. Love her to death.
Your mom is so cool, dude. Your all's relationship is
awesome.
so wild.
Yeah.
I love it.
Through everything, my mom has stood by me no matter what. Maybe not been the most happy with my choices, but has always stayed by my side as a mother, and I'm eternally grateful for that. My father was in my life, but not as much as a parent, more as a friend through a lot of the years.
For sure.
He left when I was 4. Actually, that's my first childhood memory, as messed up as that. My first childhood memory was the night he left. I woke up, my mom was crying, and I like scurried into her little room. I lived in Hilton Head Island at the time, South Carolina. And I went in the room, she was crying. She said, Dad's leaving for a little bit. I don't remember the exact words, but he picked up a bag and he turned around and left. And I didn't see him for a little while after. I don't know what it was. But it wasn't like he was never present in my life. He was always there, just not, I guess, in the capacity that you would think a traditional father would have been. Yeah,
for sure. So did you all stay in Hilton Head for a while after that? Or
we did until I was about 8 years old. And then my mother had a consignment store down there. It was called Mother Goose's Attic. And obviously, if you know anything about Hilton Head Island, it's rich. It's old money. And we were not that and never were that. When my father was there, he worked at Palmetto Dunes as the resort manager. So it was obviously doable, but with single mom income, 3 kids. No, we made it till about, until I was 8 years old. And then we moved, my mom wanted us to be closer to him. He had moved to Atlanta, Georgia. So we moved just east of Atlanta in Covington at the time.
Yeah. And is that pretty much where you were at until you went in the Marine Corps?
Moved from Covington to Conyers when I was in 5th grade. So like, what are you, 11, 12, whatever you are there. And then I stayed in Conyers until I left for the Marine Corps at 18 years old.
Yeah. What was life like kind of growing up in Hilton Head, being on the other side of the tracks, maybe not?
It was, man, from what I do remember of it, it was a lot of, I mean, obviously still really young, just 8 years old, but, we went to the beach a lot. Man, I mean, it's different, just
don't
different
really
type
remember
of
a whole
life.
lot.
Yeah, just different type of life. It's like seafood, living by the beach type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But living around a bunch of rich people like that, did it influence the way you feel about rich people now, you think, in any kind of way?
No, I think the older I've gotten, the more that's influenced how I feel about rich people.
Yeah, for sure. So what was it like once you moved, when you moved to Atlanta? Was that a hard transition for you? Or
It was definitely different. I didn't, obviously Hilton Head is the South.
Yeah.
But it's not like the South.
Yeah, for sure.
And you move to Atlanta, or right outside Atlanta, and it is the South. You're experiencing a whole different way of living. My mother was from New Hampshire, so nothing like what she was used to either.
Yeah.
It was a lot different.
Yeah. So what was it like in school growing up? Did you do okay in school, or how was that?
I did. When I tried, I did okay.
Yeah.
For the most part, I will say that I didn't try as much as I probably should have, obviously.
Of course.
But when I tried, I did okay. I started, 6th grade. I met some friends, and that was like my first real interaction with. It was like, I was a big skateboarder when I was a kid, and he had a bunch of older brothers. It was my best friend growing up. His name was Jordy.
Yeah.
And we were tight all throughout high school and into through most of my Marine Corps career, honestly, while I was in there.
Yeah.
And then we fell off, and we can talk about that later. But man, his older brothers, obviously, they smoked weed, did a bunch of different stuff. And when I started to get into the marijuana a little bit.
How old were you with that again?
I want to say 12 or 13.
Yeah, for sure.
First time I smoked. Yeah, it's really hard to remember, honestly.
I think it was like 14 or 15. I think that's about when I started.
I started smoking, not anything consistent, or anything like that, but just definitely
dabbling a little bit.
A little here or there, smoking a joint in somebody's front yard. I think is one of my first memories I have.
Smoking out of a Coke can or something. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, nothing like what it is nowadays, to where, weed is pretty much for the most part legal in a lot of states.
Yeah,
it's wild to see, what it has transitioned from even from the time where I was a kid to now.
Oh, for sure,
it's wild.
Yeah, it keeps changing. And it's a weird thing too. It's almost like they're softening up, maybe because like I guess all the rest of the drugs are just getting so hard out on the street. Of course, they keep peddling it in. It's the government that's peddling it all in anyway. But we can talk about that later too. But anyway. So, what would you say? Influenced you the most to go in the Marine Corps?
So, by 10th grade, I realized that I did not like school.
Right.
Not any bit of it. I didn't want to focus. I didn't want to do anything. I did just enough to get like B's, C's, and maybe like an A or two. But I truly did not care. And I knew that. And I also, by 10th grade, I'm partying a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I'm smart enough to realize it, and self-conscious enough to realize that if I go to college, I will flunk out from
for
partying.
sure, bro.
There's no way this is for me.
I never even tried to lie to myself about that.
I was like,
I took the ACT and
me.
fell asleep halfway through it, bro. That's when I knew. I was like, this is not for me.
I remember my mom dropped me off to take, I don't remember if it was the SAT or the ACT, but I had smoked so much the night before that I was like, this is going to be absolutely miserable. And I didn't care at all.
I think I smoked before I got there. That's probably why I didn't really care.
I just boop, 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 boop. I'm done with this. I'm 4 hours sitting here and I got to do this, and I'm not even going to go to school. And I knew I wasn't going to go to school. My mom knew it. I told her. She was. It's not that my mom didn't support my decision for the Marine Corps, because when she finally got on board, she, just like any other mother, she didn't want her kid to die.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that was a big part of it. But I told Mom at sophomore year, I was like, I think I want to go to the Marine Corps. Towards the end of it, I was like, I want to go. I didn't say the Marine Corps at the time. I want to go in the military. So they had ROTC in my high school. I went to Salem High School in Conyers, Georgia, and it was Marine Corps ROTC. So I was around my instructors were a master sergeant and a gunnery sergeant. So I got to see a side of the Marine Corps before I could see any of the branches. And the way that it is preached to you, this is the hardest, most hardcore branch. You're the most prideful people you ever meet. And man, it was intoxicating just being around what I could. I loved putting on the uniform for ROTC, and I loved to, that sense of pride I felt like just even at that lower
belonging
level.
to something that was so much bigger than yourself, man, that you could have so much pride in.
It was different. It was something that I hadn't, I think that was part of it that I was always looking for in something, because I played sports growing up too. I played baseball until about sophomore year.
Yeah.
And that was, like I said, when the partying started becoming more and more. But, I went to, let's see, I can't remember. So start of 11th grade year, I think we went down to Paris Island for like a week-long little mini boot camp thing.
Yeah.
And the drill instructors are there with you every day. Now, your ROTC instructor's there with you still. But, man, I gave my all for that little week. And, I mean, as much as everybody was like, this sucks, I loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this is it. I'm coming here.
Yeah.
Came back shortly after that, told my mom, I'm going to the Marines.
Yeah.
So that was that.
Yeah.
I was sold.
Yeah, dude, basic training was a blast. Of course, I was just a pansy and went in the Army. But, it was, but I was really disappointed, though, when I got done, honestly. Like, when I finished with basic training, I was really disappointed with how soft it was. Like, it was too easy. It was way too easy. I don't know.
Where'd you go? Would you go to Benning, or where did you end up going?
I went to Knox.
Okay.
So, if you're going to be in the Army, you at least got to go to a man's basic training, I suppose. Right. So, at least I made it to a man's basic training. So, I can appreciate that. Yeah. And, but anyway, I had joined because it was kind of like my last-ditch effort before I went to rehab.
Yeah.
And I was 19, and the family didn't know necessarily how bad it was. Like, they knew that I was partying a lot and stuff, but they didn't know, like, how bad it was. And I got to this spot.
You don't really want to let them know either.
Yeah. It was really frowned on, And so... But I remember I went to work one day, and there was a lot of just personal stuff going on. I was acting a fool, man. I was off the hinge at that point, and I was drinking a lot. I was drinking a lot of brandy too. Like, I don't even know. I don't even like brandy. Oh, it was god awful.
Is this cheap or what?
Drink a little E and J and do a little B and E. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Y'all
know what I'm saying.
Your addiction story is way different than mine.
Yeah, it's a little.
I do think it's fun that everybody is different.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of similarities, and you can always link them up, especially when people start to tell their stories and stuff like that. So, but it's like, like you said, our complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Yours is slow, mine's fast is the best way to put it. But yeah,
for sure. And so I didn't know really what to do, but I know that I went to work one day, and there was this guy, older guy that was working there, and he was in the National Guard, and he had been in the National Guard for like 20-something years. Yeah. And he came up to me, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Dude, I hate this job. I hate you. I hate everything. Don't talk to me." I was like, that day I was at the end of my rope. Clearly. I was hungover. God, I felt terrible.
What was the job?
I was an electrician. It was one of my first electrical jobs. Okay. That was one thing my dad always instilled in me. It's one of the things that I'm probably the most grateful for that he probably instilled in me, was never to go to college and to learn a trade. And he was an electrician. And so when I was growing up, I was doing side jobs with him. So at 13, I was wiring houses and stuff. So,
That's definitely carried you through.
It has, man. And so, for sure. And I guess in my mind, like, he's in the IBEW, the union, the same union I'm in. And it always provided for the family. I remember that. Even though there were times of layoff and stuff that we went through as a kid, I remember, it always provided for us, man. And so for me, just growing up, it was just the most logical thing, because, it's so, you have no student debt. It cost me like $700 a year.
Can't really beat that.
You're working a job, but you get an increase of like $2.50 a year until you top out. It's a beautiful thing. Free insurance, free retirement. Like, you don't put a dime in it. They all do it for you.
That's nice.
And it's awesome. So for me, it was just kind of the way to go. So that was my first kind of effort. I had actually tried to get in the union then. It was actually my first effort to kind of like, I'm going to do something with my life. It was totally unmanageable. I couldn't do it. And so that was when dude come up to me that morning, and I was really hungover, he was like, he's like, well, if you hate this job so much, why don't you just go find another job? And I was like, well, do you know when we're hiring? He said, my uncle's hiring. And I was like, well, what's your uncle do? He said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to kill somebody. He said, oh, we can make that happen. And I was like, what's your uncle do? And he was like, Uncle Sam. And I was like, bro, you've lost your mind. I was like, ain't happening. Not a chance. Yeah. And then I got home and I was sitting there and I was alone. I had my son at the time. He was, gosh, I guess less than 1 maybe. And my first ex-wife at the time, we hadn't even gotten married yet, and she had kind of taken off. Of course, like I said, I was acting a fool, man. Yeah. So she had taken him and left. So I was just in a bad spot in my head. And I was sitting there. I was all alone that night, and I was sitting there drinking again, and I was like, I got to do something. And that was when I had that realization that, like, okay, it's either the military or rehab. Like, I got to do something. Yeah. And so I was like, if I go to the military, I don't have to tell anybody how bad it is.
For sure.
The problem is I ended up, because I was considering the Marines too. So I called the Marines.
And did you have the tattoos all over you back then?
No. My biggest issue was I had gauged ears. Like, I had 1.25 inch gauged ears.
Yeah, wind tunnels. You can't have it.
No. Actually, there's not a regulation. There's not. I sit at MEPS for 4 hours, and they can never show one to me.
Really?
Nope. And so, but finally, I agreed to have them sewed shut to shut them up. And then I got to basic training, and half of my company had gauged ears. I was mad, but
I would have been as well.
Yeah, but it's all good. You know, Uncle Sam got me a bunch of different times along the way. He was a mean uncle. I didn't really care for him.
He always wins.
Yeah, he always wins. You'll never win. But yeah, so that was my first realization that, like, I had to do something. And so I remember I had called the Army and talked to a recruiter. My dad knew a recruiter, so I talked to him. And then I called the Marines. And, bro, when you start thinking about calling the Marines, they're already at your door. It's like y'all got spider sense to know that, like, ooh.
See, mine was different. As soon as I knew I wanted to join, I was driving by the recruiter's office every chance I got, and I could never catch these dudes in their office.
Oh, yeah? Well, that was because they were, like, out here chasing down people when they would have this sense that some dude's thinking about it somewhere. I mean, bro, I'm sitting there dialing a number, and I'm pretty sure I heard his tires in my driveway. He was quick, bro. Dude. So he gets over at the house, and we're sitting there just kind of talking on the front porch, and my mom's over there, I believe, maybe, and we're sitting there talking, and I had already talked to the Army, and I was like, and like I said, I'm pretty addicted right now, and so I'm thinking about money. Mm-hmm. And so he said, I said, well, what do I get if I join? And he's like, well, you'll get to call yourself a Marine.
First
and every Marine you'll meet for the rest of your life will be your brother.
What can we give you?
And I said, well, the Army's going to give me 20 grand, so I'm out.
Marines ain't getting that.
Well, the Army screwed me out of it, too, in the long run. So, you know, I should have just probably done that. But hindsight, you know. And so anyway, no, it was, but the problem was like once I joined, though, I picked an MOS in aviation, and it was a sweet job. I had an awesome opportunity, so I was really excited about it.
That's literally what I did in the Marine Corps.
I did electronics, avionics, and weapons on the Kai with a scout helicopter, and it was really cool. But the problem was to get into the school for that, like, I had to wait 9 months to leave for basic training. Mm-hmm. And so I could roll out of basic training and go straight into AIT.
For sure.
So the day that I joined, I went and took a layoff at my job and wrote unemployment for 9 months and just sit there and got high for 9 months, bro.
Love that.
And the day that I left for basic training on September the 9th.
You felt terrible, didn't you?
The day that I left, my unemployment ran out. The day that I left.
Time to beautify.
That was after I filed an extension, too. And so, I got the extension, and the extension ended the day that I left, bro. It was beautiful. And so then the military paycheck started flowing in, so it just rolled right through. But in that 9 months, man, I was just deep. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm about to go get sober, you know? Yeah. And so, it was bad, dude. I laid around and got fat and high, and that was a terrible idea right before going to basic training.
What were you using back then? Was it
still? It was Oxycontin back then. And so I would be like in there just laying on the couch, smoking pot, eating food, getting fat, and like snorting oxys. And like I wasn't productive, wasn't active. And so when I got to basic training, bro, I was it was so bad, dude.
Dope sick.
Well, not only was I dope sick, man, but I had packed on a bunch of weight from just sitting around doing nothing for months except eating and getting high, you know? And so when I got to basic, dude, it was rough. Dude, I was high as a kite when I got there. And like right outside the gate.
Did they not piss test you?
They piss test you at MEPS when you enlist, but after that, no.
We got piss tested when MEPS as well. When we got
Bro,
to
I was hoping they would piss test me and kick me out. Because when I left,
I bet you didn't want to leave at that point.
Yeah, because you're dreading withdrawal so much.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, I hope I get there and fail a piss test. I swear I did. And I was like, man, I'll just be out and be done with this and whatever. And so,
that's wild.
Yeah, no. So we were right outside the gate of Fort Knox, and the van driver, he pulled into this gas station. And he said, all right, it's your last stop. He said, if y'all want anything to drink, anything, he said, it's your last stop before you go in.
Yeah.
And so we went inside, and I crushed up 280s in the bathroom.
Jesus.
Bro, I was lit, dude. And I remember coming through the gate at Fort Knox, and I was just catching a good nod, and my head was up against the window. And I remember it was dark outside, but you could see all the lights on the base.
Yeah.
And I remember driving down through there and kind of glancing up and seeing this sign over top of the road that said, "Welcome to the U.S. Army." And I was like, uh-oh. I have messed up. Like, there's no going back. Like, what are you going to
do? Not a damn thing.
And so, for the next, 2.5 weeks, man, it was pretty brutal of withdrawals. And that was the first time that
Did they not say anything? Nobody, caught on to it at all? Nothing?
Here's the deal. It was the easiest withdrawal I ever done. It was the first time I ever withdrew and the easiest. And the reason is I couldn't sleep and they wouldn't let me sleep, and I couldn't eat and they wouldn't let me eat. And I was so on edge because I didn't know what to expect from them. I wasn't even thinking about detox.
So it just registered as typical anxiety across the board.
Nobody ever said anything, dude. I'm pretty sure there was a few of us that were sick.
Really?
Like, it wasn't just me. No, dude.
There was none that if there was, I couldn't see it back then, but I'm telling you right now.
Yeah. No, maybe I was just ballsy. I don't know. But there was a couple of us that were pretty sick, because at the time when I enlisted, you could still do the alternative to prison program.
What year was this?
That was in 2009, 2008, 2009.
Yeah, I was
like that.
Fresh in high school.
Yeah. So this was right at the end of that. I think within the first 2 years of that, after that, by 2010, I want to say they weren't doing that anymore.
No, I only knew. I had some people when I was in that definitely that had came in under that rule.
Yeah.
And I know one guy now that he's actually a client of mine, that he came in under that rule as well. But other than that, I think it's a great program, but not anymore now.
Yeah. Well, we had this one dude, and he's dead now. He overdosed last year, I think. And but anyway, he was in a gang out in L.A. and he got in a bunch of trouble, and they let him do the alternative. And he had messed his back up at some point really bad in his life, and he had never been to the doctor. He was broke,
for sure.
Insurance. So there was never any proof of it, and he knew that. So when they offered him the alternative, it was a play for him. So he took it, went in,
got hurt.
Yeah, but he made it all the way through basic training. Dude struggled, hurt. But he knew if he could make it through basic training, as soon as he got to AIT, we went on the first run, and he's like, my back hurts. Retired.
Beautiful.
E5, retired.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he's dead, though.
Well played. Oh, well, know.
Yeah, that check started going in his arm, I'm pretty sure, pretty quick. Sure. And I kept up with him there for a little while, but he's no longer with us. And just like a lot of people, you almost kind of come numb to it, man. It almost gets kind of sad how numb that you become to the whole thing. Like, once you lose so many people, it's like, it's not that you don't feel it. It's not like it doesn't hurt anymore. It's just like, I don't know, man. It just happens so much. You're not surprised, I guess.
I think we're definitely different ends of the spectrum on this, because not to say that people don't die from methamphetamine, because I'm sure they do, but I know a lot more that I've seen that have died definitely from the heroin, fentanyl, pressed pills, and things of that nature. And that wasn't, like I said, that wasn't my bag when I was, deep in addiction. I'm sure people did it, but it wasn't like I was a biker.
Yeah.
And that was definitely, that was actually my mother. So, not every, we're not all nodding out on the Harleys.
Yeah, the worst thing you had to worry about is a lab blowing up or something.
Yeah, that, man, you run a little too fast, you can start to feel your heart thumping out. There was one time that I had done a bunch of cocaine, like a bunch, and then I did a little bit of crystal. And just that little mix, I don't know if it just set my heart to a different rhythm or what it was, but I'm sitting on a couch in my apartment, and we got a bunch of people over too. Everybody's just lit like a Christmas tree, geeking. And I'm sitting there, and I tried to move my legs, and I could not. There was nothing I could do. Like, I knew my eyes were bugging out of my head, because I'm like trying to move, and I can't. And everybody starts looking at me, they're like, is something wrong with you? Are you okay? I'm just like, I can't move.
Bro, that's a whole different level of being high. But, like, look, I can understand being so high on heroin or pills that you can't move, but I can't understand being so high on speed that you can't move. Like, that's a whole different level of high.
I would always try to out high everybody. You won't get high. So I will say, obviously, people don't know. So I was something I am not proud of, but it is the honest truth. I was a dealer for the years that I was in addiction. For the larger part of it, I was a dealer, and so I was not stingy with it. If you were over and you were getting high for free, buddy, we're gonna get high. We're gonna get real high.
Yeah,
like I am gonna see who can go first and how fast. I mean, we're gonna lay out a number 2 pencil long line, every bit of as thick.
Oh,
hit the thing with one nostril, see if it goes, and you know what? If you finish it, it's free.
Oh yeah.
And that is how, looking back and seeing all that stuff, I'm like, there was no denying that you were an addict. Like,
yeah,
not
for
even
sure.
a little bit of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Before, or I would say, I guess, when did you get out of the Marine Corps?
Well, so you got a little ahead of ourselves. So I got out of the Marine Corps in 2017. I was married at the time, and towards the ending part of my Marine Corps career, I was stationed in Yuma, Arizona. Was freshly married, and I bought my first Harley. Arizona, great riding, great weather,
sure.
Can't beat it. Bought my first Harley. Within a few months of riding a Harley, I decided that I was going to join a motorcycle club. Had no idea which one, had looked at a bunch of different ones that I could just see in the area. I just wanted to be around them. Growing up, for some reason, gang life always fascinated me, and whether it was just partying or gang life, it fascinated me. I would watch growing up, what was it, on A&E, what's the name of the shows? God, I can't remember it now.
Bro, I was only watching Intervention.
I watched Intervention too, man, but I cannot remember the name of it. It's going to make me mad. Anyway, you'd watch shows that would talk about all the Mongols, the Hells Angels,
yeah, for sure,
all that stuff, and it just fascinated me. So I started looking at more and more. And
what would you say was the aspect that fascinated you most about it?
The extremeness, just the outside of society extreme lifestyle, that the aura that's given off, that's what's told off, that we don't care what you think about us, we're going to be the way we are.
Yeah. Do you think that the fact that it's still a type of brotherhood was a draw to that also?
I definitely said that for a long time.
Like the Marine Corps?
It was supposed to be, because towards the end of my Marine Corps career, I was getting out, and I really felt like I hadn't truly found the sense of brotherhood that I was wanting to find.
Yeah, I got you.
In certain parts I did. Looking back, I definitely had it and just didn't realize it.
I think it's maybe because we just don't fit in. Like, there's places we just don't fit in, bro. I never felt like I fit in.
I was in 3 different units, which for a single term, like single 5 years, because I was aviation, not common. You're usually in 1 unit, maybe 2. Like, so my first unit was a non-deployable unit. I begged to get out of it because I wanted to deploy. Transferred over to a deployable unit, deployed with them in 2015, 2016 on 26 MU. Like I said, came back and went to Yuma, Arizona after that, which is where the wife at the time was stationed. Now my ex-wife.
Was she in the Marines also?
She was, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
But like I said, that's how I ended up in Yuma. But yeah, I really did not feel like I belonged to any part of it.
Yeah.
So I was constantly looking. I was like, okay, well, maybe we need to go more extreme. I like the way these guys look. Tatted up, big, what I thought was that look of those guys, that was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So I found it in a group that was a majority of veterans, we'll say that.
Okay. Do you think that the motorcycle club having this really tough exterior and masculine appearance was a draw, in the fact that, maybe there was a sense of maybe like some sort of fatherhood that could be found there, maybe some sort of...
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
maybe something that you didn't have growing up, maybe you felt like you could find there?
100%. It was... I didn't have a great image of what a man was supposed to be growing up.
Yeah.
That's not a knock to my mother or anything like that.
Yeah, I get that.
It's just 100% of... I didn't have the super strong male role model that was always around to kind of guide or teach, like, especially when it comes to like house things and stuff like that. I don't know how to do any of that shit.
Yeah.
So that stuff like that, I didn't really have. So I found that, these guys are also like that. Definitely was something that I was looking for. And it was the dudes out in Arizona that I started prospecting for. I mean, they're all jacked up big. And I mean, several of them, almost all of them had families.
Yeah.
So, it was like that, man, maybe this is the strong sense of role model that I'm looking for. These guys still, they do what they want, and they're still able to be a father figure to, their kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it definitely played a part of it.
Yeah. What do you think was the biggest difference between the Marine Corps and the bike club as far as like the brotherhood and the camaraderie of it, or what you were looking for?
I was looking for that true sense of brotherhood, because even in the Marine Corps, you'll still get people that will fuck you over.
Yeah.
It'll usually be the guys right above you.
Yeah.
That say they're going to be there for you and they're not.
Yeah. So you're always looking for a sense of loyalty and genuineness.
For sure, 100%. And especially you're told your NCOs are, they're meant for you. They're going to be there for you. An NCO puts his juniors before him. And a lot of times I didn't see that, especially when it came to like staff sergeants and gunnery sergeants. There were several that were, but more than likely they were not that.
Got you.
And I despised that. I was like, man, you're supposed to embody what it means to be a non-commissioned officer, and you don't. And I hate that. So that was definitely a deterrent for me. I started, looking other places. And for some reason, like I said, I looked over there, and looking back now, it's absolutely stupid to think that 100%. But yeah, so when I became an NCO, I truly tried to be that for my subordinates. I truly tried to be, hey, I'm going to put you guys before me. Y'all are going to eat before me. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of, and try to be that. Yeah. But, that was definitely something that I thought was going to see in the club world, and I did not.
I got you. I understand that. Something I want to jump back to real quick. I was just sitting here thinking about something you said a few minutes ago, and it got me thinking. When you were talking about your mom, and you were saying, it wasn't a knock to your mom when you were talking about like you didn't have this male role model, and obviously, clearly not. But I want to talk about that because I think it's something that we live in a culture that is there's a lot of kids that's going to be dealing with that more and more and more, a lot more of a generation growing up in single-parent homes. And so I think that's something else that I hadn't really thought about before. It's probably something we need to talk about more on this channel too, though, especially because single-parent homes and addiction, that or no-parent homes, that all kind of goes hand in hand. So that's something we definitely need to probably be talking a lot more about, though, because you brought up a lot of really good things that's got me thinking about some stuff. So that's pretty awesome.
I did, about to say so I had they were never married, but longtime boyfriend, fiance, whatever you want to call a stepdad. I did have something like that. Yeah. And he did some things that, in a sense, that were father figure like. He went to a job every day, worked. He worked as a plant manager, And, but years down the road, he had lost his job, and you could tell he was bummed about things, but he ended up, I didn't find out this until I was in the Marine Corps getting ready to get out. But, he had turned out to be, he was an addict as well. He had, the money that he had saved away for him and my mom to kind of retire with, the years after his brother died, his brother was also a Marine too. He started to eat Oxy. And he ate their entire retirement up with Oxy. Yeah. So addiction was always around me, always. Yeah. Looking back, you never see it, being there, you never saw it until I started looking back once I got sober, and I'm like, man, it was surrounded. My dad too, as well. I know I haven't said that yet. My dad was an addict. Yeah. Same drug of choice, but it definitely. My mom was not. She drinks her wine and whatever. But that's but nothing out of the ordinary, I would say, on that sense.
For sure. Yeah, we're really naive to it when there was I had a couple of family members dealing with some addiction when I was growing up, and was definitely naive to some stuff for a while until I wasn't anymore. And then I guess once I wasn't anymore, I was at a spot in life where I kind of became intrigued with the fact that they were doing that. I don't know what it was, man. And conveniently at the time, there was a guy that lived across the street from me that was about my same age. They just found him dead about 3 months ago, I guess. They found his brother last year. He's got one brother left, I think.
So it runs in the family. Good Lord.
Oh, yeah, dude, it was bad. But they were set up for failure, if I want to be real honest with you, dude. Like, growing up, single mom home, and she meant well, and she tried her best. But, like, them boys was rough. Yeah. And, she was like kind of in the medical field. And so she would work 12-hour days to support them and stuff. So they spent a lot of time at home by themselves. Yep. And they had a mama that was definitely not a great influence. And mama would come over and she would buy us cigarettes and stuff. But then she would also start bringing us weed. And so, I was at a point in my life where I was living with my dad and kind of got introduced to that. And then once I started smoking weed, man, I was just like, I loved it, man. It was just it was an escape, man. It was, I enjoyed doing it. I loved the feeling of it, but it was just an escape, man. And it really was a gateway. Like, I don't care what
everybody says this. Weed's not a gateway drug. You are a bold-faced liar.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know nobody that did pills until I started smoking weed.
Yeah. No, and that's not to say, like, I think there are people out there that can smoke it kind of recreationally, kind of like there are people out there that are not addicts that are able to have a drink kind of recreationally and stuff.
For sure. Not everybody is an addict. I don't do that by any means.
And there's two different types of addicts. I'm a firm believer in that. You have an addict by nature and an addict by circumstance. And then sometimes you have a mixture of the two, where I'm an addict by nature and somebody else might be an addict because of circumstances that they've been through. Like, I had some stuff going on, but in my childhood, but ultimately at the end of the day, I can be addicted to anything. Mine doesn't discriminate, and I'm not necessarily getting high just to cope. It's almost more like an OCD. It's a compulsion that I can't control. Like this right here 2 weeks ago wasn't a thing until I got the green light, and it's a compulsion, dude. I obsess over
the obsessive compulsion.
And so that's how my addiction works, is if I let working out, once I get locked in on it, dude, it's an addiction for me. And so I have to find balance, dude. And that would literally, man, that's one reason why I left that show when I did the show. I remember. Like, I felt like that was kind of consuming me, and I just couldn't do it. I was losing myself in it. And so
balance has always been your issue.
Dude, it's so crazy. The video that comes out at 4 o'clock today, I'm talking about how I never had balance, and that's one of my biggest struggles in life. So it's a beautiful thing that you said that. Yes, balance has always been my biggest struggle, I believe. Probably. I don't know. I probably got about 20 of my biggest struggles. It's in the top 20, though.
I didn't even attempt to learn. I guess I still don't. I'm not the best at attempting to learn balance, but when it came to the addiction side of it, man, in the same way you're saying, if we're gonna do something, I'm gonna do it all the way. I really picked that up. I mean, you can say it with the Marine Corps, going into the hardest branch, but really, I think I picked that up once I got out of the Marine Corps, went into the club, and was just the most extreme person that I could be in that club. And that carried into my addiction with methamphetamine. Like, throughout it, I was going to be the highest. I was going to use the most. But in the same sense, man, that has helped me succeed as much as I have in the few years that I have been clean.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily consider it a bad thing. It's definitely, it definitely can be with the, like you said, with the wrong circumstances. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is rough, and it definitely takes a lot to try to figure out how to use that to your advantage.
For sure. I'm glad you said that, because I think that it's one of the things that's not talked about enough in recovery, and as far as trying to help addicts. The fact that there are two different types of addicts, one by nature and one by circumstance. It always set wrong with me when they would come to me and tell me, there's something wrong with you. Like, there's something wrong. There's something that you're coping with. There's something that you're trying to cover up and mask. It would never sit right with me.
Yeah, see, I didn't start using because of that either.
And so I was yes, it was an escape when I was a kid, but I just loved getting high. I don't know. It was just, even when I started on the pills and stuff, I loved getting high. I love that feeling. And so, but my brain's just wired all messed up and stuff. But yeah, so it never sit right with me when they would tell me that something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I think looking back, hindsight.
Is this in rehab when they're telling you all
Oh,
this
yeah,
shit?
for sure.
Yeah,
Not only just in rehab, but there's one reason why I quit going in the rooms, man. The NA and AA, just kind of personally, was the continuous thing that kept sitting wrong with me. Either somebody telling me that I had to stay sober a certain way, or yeah, I don't know. And it just never set right with me that there was something just wrong with me. I think if I would have had somebody else that could have looked at me, seen potential in me, seen that I have an addict by nature drive, and say, let me show you how to use this. I think that could have been radically different for me.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I would have saw somebody that was willing to invest in me, and that would have changed everything. Because I never felt like I had anybody to truly invest in me. Like, yes, I had some family members along the way that stuck through me through my hard times of addiction.
Yeah.
Definitely invested in me in some different ways. But I mean, somebody just to invest in me and say, you got potential. Let me just show you what to do with that, because you're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
And then I could have got with that. I think it would have helped me. And so I think that our approach to addiction has to change a little bit, and we have to evaluate, does this person got a lot of messed up circumstances, then we just need to hash a lot of stuff out through therapy? Or do we need to show this person a new way to live?
I mean, it's hard to say one way or the other, for sure.
And a lot of it just comes through self-awareness and you figuring that out on your own.
I've heard you say it a few times, obviously being friends all the years that we have. Not that I necessarily disagree with it. I think I understand what you're saying. I guess it's a little bit different for me. So I had one instance of sexual abuse as a child. And later in life,
that needs to be talked about more.
It's rough, but it's not why I chose to use. I wasn't using to cover things up. There is one period throughout my addiction where I was doing that, and that is when I got at my absolute worst. So when my dad died in 2018, my dad died of a complication from AIDS, menocardial meningitis, I believe is how you say it. And essentially, it's a cancer specific to AIDS patients. And he had it, I believe, and I want to say 6-7 months. I could be incorrect. But when he got that and it got into his spinal cord, it goes to your brain and it essentially eats your brain. And we knew that was over. When my dad was dying, I was heavily involved in the club. I was starting a chapter here in Tennessee, in Knoxville. I was, I believe, the sergeant at arms of the chapter at the time. And so, we had a lot going on here. That came up. We knew my dad was sick. Like I said, my dad was an addict, same drug of choice, crystal meth, for years. And I think a life of partying is what led him, obviously, to his death. But when he died, I remember getting the call. I had just ordered pizza from like Papa John's or Domino's or something, barely eaten in like 2 days, been running. And my sister FaceTimed me, which was, it was 11:30, 12 at night on a weekday. My sister FaceTimes me, and I answer the phone. I'm like, what's up? And she's crying, so I already know what's coming. She's like, my dad was already in the hospital. And she was like, Dad fell out of the bed. They did a brain scan, and they found something on. They gave him 72 hours. So, okay, I'm on the way. Let me figure this out. Grabbed what I needed to from the house, told everybody, hey, I got to go. Went down there. And like I said, they gave him 72 hours to live. So, we're just I'm thinking we're going to go down there, say goodbyes. He's going to pretty much already be gone. That was not the case. He was there, but he wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was making just a lot of moans, a lot of noises, but he was in a lot of pain, and you could tell. And there was nothing they could do for him, nothing. So we had a meeting later that day when I got down there. It was me and my sister, and it was all the doctors, like a board of doctors. And they're sitting there explaining us what goes on. The whole time they're talking to my sister, like looking at her, explaining it to her, and I'm like, I'm right the fuck here.
Yeah.
I understand I probably look a little rough, but explain to me what's going on. I'm not completely stupid.
For sure.
And they're explaining, we think it's best, move him to hospice. I was like, okay. Is this our only option? Oh, yep. I'm like, then why are we doing this? Just tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
They move him over to hospice. He makes it pretty much a week. And for that week, he essentially, it was like he was starved to death.
Yeah.
He went from probably, and obviously this isn't exact, but he probably went from 120 pounds to around 80, 90 pounds.
Yeah.
And you saw all the life leave him. And it was terrible. And parts of the week I was there. The other parts of the week I would leave. For the most part, man, I was running out to the parking lot getting high the whole time. Every little bit I was going out to the parking lot and getting high. And at this point, I'm snorting it. I'm not smoking it. I hadn't started smoking it yet. And, man, it killed me seeing him like that. And obviously, you know, you're feeling it, you're not feeling it. But when you're that high, man, you can feel some sense of emotion.
Yeah.
But that was the period where I started to use to cover that up.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel that.
For sure.
And so that week, he died. And I'm either that later that week or it might have been the end of the next week is when I picked up my first pipe and I started smoking it.
Mm.
I went from snorting about a half a gram a day, which is, if you know anything about meth, it's rough on the nose. It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
To
glass, baby.
Yeah, to snorting. I was snorting about an 8-ball.
Mm.
And after that week, my nose was fried. I was like, I got to figure something else out. And I wasn't at the needle. Nothing. I don't judge anybody for what they chose to do in addiction, man. It is what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
But I picked up a pipe. I had saw some guys that were in a different organization. That was how they chose to use it, and these were like the big homies.
When in the kind of the club scene, is it a thing where it's like you can get high, but you don't use a needle?
Absolutely, it is. It is 100%. It is a bylaw. Nothing with a needle.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Different clubs, different things.
What's the big deal? I mean,
it is the look of that is an addict, and
okay, I got you.
A needle is an addict. Same thing with smoking. Like so, different clubs have different rules. I don't want to go too much into that,
sure.
But certain drugs, all the same thing as well. Certain clubs are hard nosed on certain drugs. Mm-hmm. Most of the big organizations, they have a zero meth policy.
I could see that.
Everybody does
policy
it.
To have.
Everybody does it.
I'm sure.
But it's a zero meth policy. You can use cocaine, blah, 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 but you can't use meth because it turns people out, and that's it. Not wrong. However, like I said, everybody uses it. But most people that are, like I said, bylaw, can't use it. It's okay if you snort it. You're just partying. Can't tell the difference between that and coke if it's done out.
I mean, I can imagine that's a wild ride cruising through Arizona on a motorcycle, twacked out.
I didn't do it in Arizona, but definitely Florida and Tennessee.
One way or the other.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
I mean,
it's great. That's why I don't ride anymore.
That's got to be wild.
That's 100% why I don't ride
anymore. I'm not
anymore.
an adrenaline junkie, though. That's not my thing. And so maybe that's why I don't really care anything for it.
You ain't never lived until you've been splitting lanes in between dead stop cars, 50, 60 mile an hour, damn near touching everybody's side mirrors, and you done just smoked an 8-ball. Great feeling. Terrible, but great feeling. It's just
feeling like you're in the Matrix.
You are really close to being a god at that point in your mind. You're not, but it's really what it feels like.
You want a piece of gravel from not being.
Literally.
Oh man, that's crazy. So what is it that kind of got you out of the club scene? What was your choice? What was the reason? Was it just getting sober?
No, hell no. I can't remember the year I got. I believe I got out in the beginning around 2019, shortly after my dad died. Like I said, I started using a lot more, and I started to become a bigger dealer. And the club did not like that. Contrary to popular belief, motorcycle clubs, they don't want drug dealers. There is part of it, but
attention.
It's not 100%. They got enough as it is, and especially dealing crystal, big freaking no-no.
Sure. It's like selling coke. They keep coming around for a key bump every 20 minutes.
Yeah, a little bit different than you got the junkies knocking at the door of the trap house.
That's when Oak Ridge police started catching on to me back in the day. I was selling weed and everything was all well and good. I was selling weed and ecstasy, and then I started selling cocaine, and they started showing up about every 20 minutes over there and started bringing too much traffic.
It's like, what's going on over here?
Shut that down real quick.
Yep. So that was I got, like I said, stopped the club 2019. I realized I had one instance. I wrecked a bike. Funny enough, it wasn't even my bike. My bike was already wrecked. I wrecked a bike of the guy whose shop I work in now. His name's Elliot. Great dude. He let me borrow his motorcycle to go to a national run, and I didn't even make it out of Knoxville. I dumped this fucking bike over, and arms ate up. I still got the scars all over my arms from it. I threw myself under this bike to save his bike because it wasn't mine. So I slid with the bike, and it did save the bike for the most part. Anyway, I made it out to the national run. I got in the car, drove out there, still leaking blood, gravel in my arms. Didn't care. I'm going to make it. It's my job. I was, I believe, the vice president of the chapter at the time. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to make it. Get out there, get the wounds cleaned up from somebody that was a doc, you know, scraped everything out. Was like, all right, man, just go sleep, have a nice night. Said hello to everybody. Everybody kind of acted a little weird towards me when I got there. And I didn't know what it was. It could have been me because I've been up for a day or two, you know. But I went and I told the guy that was the chapter P at the time, I was like, hey, man, I'm going to go sleep this off. Come wake me up in about 6 hours. I feel like, he's like, all right, man, I'll come get you. He didn't wake me up. Nobody came and got me. Nobody came to see me. Nothing. And I'm laying in a hotel room. I think I slept for maybe 12, 14 hours. So obviously I needed the sleep. But nobody came to see me. Not a single member. And we're supposed to have the entire nation there. Everybody knew I wrecked. They put it out over text message threads whenever somebody goes down. Nobody came to see me. And that was definitely my period of, I think I quit the next week. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, later down the road, I heard they were telling people that I was just that shot out, that I was in the hotel room. I was bad, blah, blah, blah. Of course I was bad, but that wasn't the reason I was laid up in the hotel room.
Yeah.
And nobody cared.
Yeah.
So I realized that brotherhood that everybody talked about, this, that, and the other, is a damn lie.
Yeah. Yeah, that loyalty was messed up there a little bit, so I can see that messing with everything for sure. When that's what you've been looking for so much.
Like I said, left the club, quit, and I became a bigger dealer. Because why not? Because now I got nobody telling me I need to slow it down or nothing. For sure. So I became a much larger dealer. Led that whole year, pretty much, where I was just using some of the stupidest shit I've done, some of the wildest shit I've done. And I mean, it really got to a point where I'm smoking, 3.5 grams at least a day, about an ounce a week of just personal use. And towards the end of the year, I was in full psychosis. I didn't know what was what from reality. I put my family through hell in that time. And for that, I'm forever sorry for what I put my family through. I unfortunately ruined a lot of relationships. One of those was my younger brother, and I've attempted to make, strides to try to make that relationship better. But it definitely took a toll on him seeing his dad die from meth use, and then essentially meth use and partying, and then seeing his older brother literally choose that same fucking path.
Yeah, for sure.
While his dad was on that deathbed, and that was, eternally sorry. That is one of my biggest things I want to fix and want to try to make better, was how bad I torched that relationship and the poor example that I set for him by doing all what I did.
Yeah, dude, I totally understand that. I think, in some aspects, maybe him seeing what you did has kept him on a better path. And so in some way, it's a blessing, I guess. But, in another way, I know that really, really sucks. I did a lot of damage, too, along the way. And fortunately, I've been able to make most of my amends. There's still some amends that I'm not able to make because, we only make amends when doing so doesn't hurt yourself or others. And so there's just a couple of amends that aren't able to be made sometimes, and it's unfortunate. But I think that, just with time, I hope that kind of resolves itself and gets better. It just takes some time, I suppose. Sometimes it just takes people getting older, people that don't, I don't know.
We still talk and everything like that. It's just, it's not what it once was. You
don't have that relationship that you once had.
No, and once again, 100% my fault. Big, accountability is a huge thing with recovery. And, man, I did, not to say that I didn't put my mom and sister through a bunch too, definitely did. But I think the biggest toll was on my little brother. Yeah,
I think that's one reason why my little brother and my sister stayed more on a straight and narrow than I did, is because seeing a family member kind of go through it growing up, and then me choosing to do the same thing, I feel like it definitely influenced them to not, and I am grateful for that.
It's usually one of two ways. You know, you either see it and you be like, I don't want anything to do with that, or that curiosity that killed the cat.
Yeah,
and start wondering what is going on.
For sure, and addiction is such a wild thing, man. How it doesn't discriminate, man, and that's the thing too. It's not a comfort as a parent, but it's something that, I don't know, maybe I tell myself too, try to comfort myself. And it's just like, you do your best you can raising your kids. And I always feel like I'm failing miserably, always. Yeah. And I think that that's probably most parents. I feel like you just probably feel that way. We're doing the best we can. The fact of the matter is, I can do all the things right, and at the end of the day, they could still be addicts. It doesn't discriminate.
No.
And I can't sit here and just worry. All I can do is give them the tools and resources and the positive role model influence that I can be, and just hope to kind of guide them, because I believe addiction's hereditary. I believe it's a lot of genetics.
You think it's like in the blood or in the genetics?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, it's all through my family, both sides. Yeah. And most people that I know, addiction definitely runs in the family.
I mean, I guess I can't really argue it, because a lot of my family, it does surround. My mother's sister, essentially she died from career alcohol use. Mm-hmm. Like I said, father, meth. I guess I can't necessarily say you're wrong.
Yeah, well, there's actually a gene.
Oh, really?
There's a gene they've actually found. Yeah, it's wild. You should research. When I was in Cornerstone of Recovery, there's actually, when you do Family Week, they have like this dude from some university. It might have even been UT. I can't remember, but he comes over and he goes over the full mental brain molecule breakdown and shows this gene they've actually found for addiction. And so it is hereditary. Like I said, I think that it's not hereditary for every person. I think that people can become addicted. You got people.
You think that's the obsessive gene that's necessarily what it is, not necessarily the addiction?
Possibly.
Do you see it as a choice or a disease? I know, obviously, let me go ahead and preface this before we ask that question. Whatever gets someone sober, I love it for you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I absolutely, if it is, what is it, MAT, if it's meetings, if it's rehab,
whatever it is to get you sober,
I love it for you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I might disagree with your beliefs, should I say, but I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong for what you believe.
Yeah.
But I know coming differently from AA, NA to me to where I've not done rehab or anything like that, I didn't have that to get sober.
Yeah. Fundamentally, it's 100% a choice. I mean, fundamentally, I'm the one that chose every step along the way to get me to where I was at. Fundamentally, yes. Can I necessarily call it a disease? No, I feel like it's more of a disorder, maybe like obsessive compulsive disorder. Yeah. I mean, and I could be wrong. I'm not a professional. I don't know, any of the medical stuff. I just know myself.
And like I said, I'm not knocking it. I hope nobody takes offense to it, but it is definitely something that we talk about as addicts nowadays. I talk about it. I have a lot of friends that went through NAAA, and they truly do believe that it is a disease, it is a sickness, and that is what they believe to get them clean.
Yeah, and if that's what gets you, fine. Whatever you got to tell yourself. It is what it is. Yeah. That's just me basing that off of me knowing myself and the way that I feel about myself. And is that right or wrong? I don't know, but that's how I feel about it. So I don't know. I believe it was a choice that I made. I chose to go over to the neighbor's house to get high. I knew I was not supposed to.
100%.
I chose all of that.
I'm not disagreeing.
And so, so just trying to find a new way to live is, I think that's the biggest part, man, is just sometimes people, I feel like that's one of people's biggest hindrances on getting sober sometimes. I think it was for me, was that sometimes you dig yourself such a hole.
You don't know how to be clean anymore. You don't know what that's like.
Yeah. Well, not even that though, but I dug myself such a hole with the justice system, with the courts and everything. And you dig yourself such a hole that it's easier just to wallow in that hole than to fix it. Because to fix it all took 7 years of work and 7 years of a lot of, granted, I brought it all on myself and it was all consequences of my actions and my addiction. But at the same time, that's why most people, because I remember there was just points in time where I was like, it doesn't even matter. Like, I'm going to get high because it doesn't even matter. Like, I'm set up for failure. I'm in the system. You can't get out of this.
I ain't getting out of it.
Like, I mean, that's the mentality that you get, man.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, not just an addiction, but I think there's a lot of people out there with that can kind of apply to is that, it's easier to wallow in your misery than to do something about it. It's just like in weight loss. It's easier to keep eating the food than to do something about it. It's easier to keep killing yourself than to do something about it.
Yep.
It's no different.
My experience, so when, like I said, I had relapsed that first time. Getting sober the second time was way harder.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I say this run of sobriety, this is the run I got. I ain't going backwards, buddy. I ain't got another one. This is it for me. I am staying sober. When I kicked the first time, I had been running for so long that it was, this was my defining moment for getting sober. I was smoking in my apartment at the time, was about to lose the apartment and damn near become homeless. My mom had called me. And she was talking to me. I'm barely listening to it. I'm crying, smoking. Everything in my life is going wrong at this point. And she said to me, I will never forget these words. She said, Myles, you can quit. I believe in you. And when I tell you, there wasn't an ounce of hope left in my mother's voice. She didn't even believe the words that she was saying at this point, and that broke my fucking heart. I don't remember what the rest of the conversation was. I hung up the phone. I looked at my pipe in my hand, and I was like, you know what, man? Fuck it. I'm going to quit. I put a fat 3-gram rock in my pipe, smoked this bitch till it was gone. I flushed 3 ounces of dope down the drain. I had just picked up the day before. Flushed everything. I started breaking pipes on the floor in my bathroom because that was the only tile surface I had, and I wanted to smash them. I said, you know what, bro? I don't know if I'm going to withdraw. I don't know if I'm going to die, but I'm going to die fucking quitting. I went upstairs that night, and this was another terrible realization. I walked upstairs in my apartment, and I realized that in the month or two that I had moved into this place, there was no bed. There was no mattress.
Like a vampire.
There was just shit strung about. And I had been essentially just passing out and falling asleep wherever I had been for the last 2 months. I couldn't even tell you. But that was a horrible realization. Like, there's no beds. I pushed some clothes together and I slept on them. I said, okay, tomorrow's day one. I didn't feel sober for probably 60, 70 days. That was when I could, but that by then, I've got 70 days clean. Why the fuck am I going to stop now? Fast forward to, the relapse and everything. Getting clean the second time, once again, I've never done NA, AA. I don't say that to be proud. I just say that's not how I got clean. And people can get clean without those ways.
Absolutely.
So the second time I had kicked, I have a job. I'm a master barber at this point. I've got a job. I'm making money. Nobody knows that I've fallen off the rails. They know that I'm drinking or whatever, but they're like, man, that's fine. That's cool. I know for myself that I can't. It's too late. In my head, it's too late. I'm using for 2 weeks at a time, stopping. Using for 2 weeks at a time, stopping. And nobody can see it. And I'm just in this cycle of, man, fuck it. The depression that I had felt from letting not only myself down, but everybody else down around me from choosing to use again, was absolutely awful. And it lingered in my head every fucking day I was trying to get myself clean. And finally, I made the choice to, I changed jobs. I'm still a master barber, moved over to Pike Barbershop here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I'm still at to this day.
Shameless plug to Pike Barbershop. Yeah, it's the Wild West of barbershops.
It's the greatest one you'll ever see. It really is. We got a great crew there. Come check it out.
They do. It's so cool.
When I got there, I knew I had to get my shit straight. So, I used to be a big morning gym person. And it worked a lot at the time, especially in early recovery. For the 2 weeks that I was there, I said, all right, man, 2 weeks, we are going to get up and we are going to feel like absolute dog shit. Your self-talk is going to be absolutely terrible, and you're going to hate yourself for what you did. But you know what? We're going to keep doing it. And after 2 weeks, we are going to feel better. Even if we don't feel better at 2 weeks, we are going to keep going because this is what we said we're going to do. So for 2 weeks, I woke up at 3:30 a.m., went to the gym, cardio, train. Same thing every single day. I got myself back on the diet in those 2 weeks, or somewhat of a diet, and I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I promise you, it crossed my mind every step of the way for those 2 weeks to continue to use. Screw it. They're not going to know. Screw it. Go back to it. You can do it and do this. Man, I stopped listening to myself. And hey, we know what's right, we know what's wrong, and we can't trust ourselves right now.
For sure.
So for those 2 weeks, man, that was how I kicked the second time. But I'm telling you, it was horrible.
Yeah. When you first get sober, you got to be willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, absolutely anything to stay sober. And it's so hard to do.
I was so alone.
Yeah. Dude, I remember when I first got sober, when I had gotten out of jail, and it was I was sleeping on the floor of the projects.
Yeah.
I was over in College Hills, or Ridgebrook Apartments over off Western Avenue, where just 3 months before that, when I was still out on the street before I went to jail, I was buying dope. I was buying heroin in there.
Yeah.
And when I got out, I ended up having a place to stay over there that nobody got high over there. It was a safe place, but it was still I'm close enough to the man.
Oh, for sure.
So when I would get up in the morning, there was a cat bus that would pick up right outside of the apartments, and I would have to jump on that cat bus and ride to West Knoxville and hang out in West Knoxville until it was time to get off, or until it was time to come back home at night, because I knew if you sit in a barber chair long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I had to get
Yep.
out of there, and then finally we were able to move out. But for the first 6 months of being out on the street and being sober, the last time, I mean, it was rough there for a while, but it was what I had to do. That was the only option, because I knew if I just sit around there, that was it.
The hard way works.
Yeah.
I think a lot of getting sober, I think that is a huge problem with recovery nowadays, is people want to do the easiest way to recover possible, and it doesn't fucking stick. It won't stick.
Well, they want the easy way on anything. Working out.
Addicts by nature do.
Yeah, anything.
Especially addicts by nature, we want the easiest way to
For
do
sure.
shit. If you can just make yourself do it that hard way, I promise you it sticks, man. It will work.
Absolutely.
It sucks. It sucks. But the hard way fucking works.
Every time. Every time. Dude, I appreciate you coming on. We're about to wrap
Yes,
up. We got a lot more that we could talk about, dude. I could sit here and talk forever. So we're going to have you back on here in
Absolutely.
a little bit.
Love
And by
to.
the way, when I had the podcast the other day and I said there was a dude in the gym that was kind of like Conor McGregor, I was strutting around. This is this gentleman right here. And he's one of my very best friends, and I'm grateful for him.
I still remember that. I still, before you shut it down, I still remember sitting there staring at you, staring at me, going back and forth, and then you finally walked up because you had talked to our old I won't say our old friend, but our old acquaintance that brought our friendship about.
Yeah.
You had asked him, "Hey man, who is this dude?
Yeah.
You know this guy?" He said, "I think it's this dude." I'm a very unforgettable face.
Yeah.
And he came up and he talked to me, and we went from there, and been tight ever since.
Yeah, dude, it's been awesome.
It's weird how it works.
It's so crazy how it works. But it's just the point, guys, let your ego go. If there's somebody out there and your ego's disagreeing with them, you should probably talk to them. You might learn something from them. So anyway, appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me, man. Absolutely. I love you too, bud.
This has been fun. Hey, I'm Manda Mike. I appreciate you stopping by. Love y'all.
See you.